Good morning, everybody. And it is morning. It's like 9 o'clock. Well, it's just about gone 8 o'clock on Tuesday morning. I think it's the 22nd today. 21st, 22nd? I'm not sure. But yeah, I've been up since 5 because one of my family members that lives in the house isn't very well. It's been not very well all night, so I'm down here on my own, and I thought as I got a bit of spare time for once, I'll make a bit of a vid, and I suppose the main thing I want to talk about is the so-called Super Saturday that's been and gone. I mean, talk about a breach of trade description. What an absolute bust that was. You know, I mean, you might have noticed there's been a change of name, a slight change on the channel. It's still a struggle, but it's Councillor James Ball, which is me, at a struggle. I thought after two and a bit years, I'd actually put my name to the thing. So yeah, I'm a Labour community councillor here in this ward that I live in sunny or not so sunny Rill at the minute. But despite what most people think about Labour members and things, I'm one of the few, I suppose, that voted for Brexit, as most of my residents did. I voted for sort of traditional socialist 1970s Lexit reasons that people like Tony Benn did, and when we were going into the EEC in 1975, and Peter Shaw and people like that, because I don't think the European Union, as its the structures of the European Union as they are actually aimed at helping ordinary people. Big business, yes. Certain countries like Germany, which is of course the economic powerhouse of Europe, yes, or really control the EU, along with France. But yeah, I don't think it helps the people around here that need help, or hasn't helped me in my 45 years get out of economic hardship and poverty. So yeah, that was my reasons anyway. Not so much to do with immigration or anything like that, because that's not really a factor here. But anyway, yeah, Super Saturday. We're hurtling towards the 31st of October. Switch hands there. Hurtling towards the 31st, and we're supposed to be out. Obviously, like I say, I'm a Labour member and council and everything. I'm a socialist supporter of Jeremy Corbyn. I'm not a sort of one of these sort of, how can I put it? Sort of personality people. I just think he's a good person, decent person, but I have my criticisms as I would of anyone really. I suppose my only criticism of Jeremy really would be that he doesn't seem to be doing what I'd do, and I suppose what a lot of people would do, which is sort of stamp his authority on certain people around him on the front benches who have sort of bounced us into this position within Labour of having a referendum on the deal at some point, with either Labour's deal or Remain as the options, and I don't think that's right, because we voted out 3 and a bit years ago. For me, it should be, if there's going to be one, it should be the offer, or what's on offer on the referendum should be the deal or no deal. Remain shouldn't be on there at all. That's my own personal humble opinion. So anyway, yeah, the whole ties into Super Saturday, which of course was actually in the end just another opportunity for lots of MPs to just delay it all again. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have criticism of Johnson's deal, of course, because Johnson's deal was 95% Theresa May's deal, which was refused 3 times by Parliament, because it wasn't really exiting the EU, it was Brino, it was Brexit in name only. But, people saying there's about sort of 5% of it was new, some concessions had been made. As a realist who wants out and thinks and just wants this all behind us, and I know most people just want all, whichever way you voted, just done and dusted, and this part of it behind us anyway. I just thought this is the best we're going to get from the EU, to be honest. I can't see them giving much more, because I don't think they're interested in giving much more. Everybody thought that Johnson was just running down the clock for what people are calling a no deal, and then there was this sort of rehashed Mrs May's deal. So obviously I've got my problems with it, because it's not what I want particularly as a Leaver, and probably most people want as Leavers, but there are some Labour MPs, a few, and people like me within the party who, if I was an MP, probably would have voted for it, realising this was the best we were going to get out of the Tories, to be honest, and the Tory EU deal. Labour's deal with the customs union and all of that. I mean, I was watching. It's very interesting actually, because I was watching or listening to Yanis Varoufakis, who of course was the Syriza finance minister when they won the elections in Greece some years ago, and obviously wanted to negotiate with the EU about the huge Greek debt and everything, so that Greece and its people weren't going to be completely hammered, which is what's happened in the end. Talking about Labour's deal, I think it was on a Question Time a few weeks back, or no, it wasn't. It was Newsnight, sorry. And he was saying if Labour got in a general election and put their deal to the EU, a Labour deal, the EU would snap it up, because it's probably even more brino than what we were offered on by Johnson on Saturday. It's not really leaving the EU, in his opinion, because of the sort of regulatory alignment, so it's early in the morning, with the customs union and all of that. So yeah, I just even though it's not what I want, even though it's a Tory deal, negotiated by Johnson in the EU, I feel it's the best we're going to get. And as I say, I think it needs to be behind us and done. This part of it anyway, after 3.25 years or whatever. But no, here we sit on Tuesday, and it's being kicked even further down the road. Yesterday, Monday, the government, I don't know if you saw it, the government applied for the deal to be voted on again. John Bercow, the Speaker, said no, he's not going to give time for that in Parliament, because it's not. There's no sort of good reason to vote on the same bill, basically. Sorry, I've got a weird morning here. The same bill within 48 hours or whatever, unless something has changed substantively, and he decided that nothing had changed to warrant that, so that wasn't being voted on. So I'm not an expert on parliamentary procedure, but apparently when I was watching the news last night, Johnson's going to try and get it through in the next 3 days, but they all thought it was unlikely, because again Parliament's going to try and do the same thing and take control of the parliamentary time and delay again. So I don't know what happens from here, really. probably more of the same, more blocking tactics, more delaying tactics. And of course, we can't just we can't do what we used to do, which is just dissolve Parliament and go straight for an election because of the Fixed Term Parliament Act that Cameron and Osborne, in their utter genius, brought up, passed in Parliament after the Tories were elected in 2010. So you have to have a 5-year Parliament, and you can't just do what you used to do, which was you could just ask the Queen to dissolve Parliament and have an election. But now you need the 2/3 agreement from MPs within Parliament. So that's why we're sort of now stuck. So I don't know what's going to happen. All I know is I'm sick to death of it. You must be sick to death of it. There's really important stuff that needs to be discussed and sorted out, which isn't being. It's all, the news, time in Parliament, it's all being completely consumed with all of this. And it's just going on and on and on and on. And meanwhile, out here in the real world, where you are and I am, more food banks popping up, more people getting kicked out onto the streets, more no-fault evictions, more children being thrown into poverty. Cross rickets has come back. Rickets has made a return in 21st century Britain, one of the richest countries in the world. We've got kids with rickets due to malnutrition. That's never talked about in the papers or on the breakfast news, is it? On it's called Good Morning Britain on ITV, or the BBC News, breakfast news in the morning. 130,000 plus people dead prematurely because of cuts to social care, because of the absolutely horrible welfare reforms, particularly for universal credit, ESA, and the assessments, which are just a bloody joke, PIP assessments and all of that. I mean, I've met people myself when I've been outside the job centre with my friends for the past 2 years, handing out leaflets about where to go locally for help if you're sort of being hammered or get you sanctioned, or having your ESA and PIP stopped for no reason, because that happens a lot. Where to go locally, which is the Benefits Advice Shop and the CAB, both of which I'm connected with. Used to be a CAB advisor. I was with them for 2.5 years. Now I've been with the Benefits Advice Shop for about 2 years. It's our AGM tonight, actually, but I'm on the board there. So yeah, I've met people. There's videos. If you go on YouTube and type in "Real People's Assembly," you'll find videos of people that spoke to us about what's happening to them. I remember one guy talking about his friend who had to walk because he didn't have the money for transport. Had to walk to the job centre from Kimmel Bay, I think it was, and back, and he had severe health problems, heart problems, and then was found dead not too long after that. So these are the sort of things that happen to actual people while all this is the deal good enough, isn't the deal good enough, delay crap, pardon my French. So yeah, just massive frustration for everyone, massive frustration, and I think we all just feel powerless, don't we? And just see, I need to get a brush after this. I reach that stage, when you have an haircut and your hair sort of grows a bit, and then it gets to that sort of point where you can't sort of really, you can't do anything with it until it's grown a bit more. I think I've reached that stage, really. But yeah, so we'll have to see what happens today in the next 2 or 3 days, and I had to laugh on Saturday because, of course, we watched all the stuff in Parliament on Super Saturday, which was nothing really, just more of the same. And then I think I was watching Sky News, and there was the rally outside Parliament, in Parliament Square with thousands and thousands of people's vote protesters who obviously want a second referendum and want to ignore the original 2016 vote that you and me voted in and won. And there was a reporter there talking to some of the people who had been on the march, who had arrived at Parliament Square, and he must have talked to 5 or 6 different people, and they all said the same thing, almost verbatim, which were the same, to me, nonsense arguments. I'm afraid to me they're just total nonsense. One was we need another vote we need another full referendum vote because young people didn't get to vote, so they mean under 18s didn't get to vote last time round. Well, on that logic, you'd have to have a referendum every single year on EU membership. You'd have to have a general election every single year. You'd have to have local elections every single year, because of course within a year hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people have turned 18 within that space of time and didn't get to vote the last time there was a general election or an EU referendum or local elections. So it's a nonsensical argument, I'm afraid, logically. And the other one was when he said to them, so bear in mind this is a Sky News interview, challenging and pointing out to people's vote Remainers how nonsensical their arguments was Sky News. When he said, well, the problem is we've had a vote three and a bit years ago, and Leave won, you lost, because they don't seem to. This is as if it never happened. They're just going over the same arguments as if we haven't had this vote and it's been and done. And their response was, again, almost verbatim, was, oh well, democracy doesn't stand still. Democracy doesn't stop with just one vote and then that's it. And we move on. You get a general election every 4 to 5 years, and all that. Well, yes, you do, but of course, what they're leaving out there is that when you have a general election, or when you have local elections, or when you have a by-election, the winning side of those elections, the people that win that vote, get what they've voted for implemented, which hasn't happened with the EU referendum back in June 2016. What was voted for hasn't been implemented, hasn't happened. And I cannot bring myself to believe that they don't understand that. I can't bring myself to believe that all of those people, and I hate that, I don't like that to go on appearances, but all of them seem to be comically middle class, upper middle class, well-to-do, living in very nice leafy parts of the southeast, on the whole, the ones I saw, obviously consider themselves very educated people. Of course, compared to people like us, we're not educated because we didn't know what we were voting for, did we? This is another thing they sort of talk about. We didn't, the working class poor didn't know what they were voting for, and now that they do know, I'm sure they'll change their minds. It's all this kind of condescending crap. Again, pardon my French, I'm so annoying. Because of course they consider themselves more educated and they know better, and they're doing us a favour by telling people to ignore what we voted for. So I find it very difficult to believe that they actually think that there should be another referendum, or just forget the last one, remain as if it never happened. No one's going to notice, no one's going to care, no one's going to be cross. We'll have another vote, even though what was voted for last time hasn't been implemented. I can't believe they actually believe that. If they do really believe that, my question would be, who are the educated ones? Who are the intelligentsia? Not them. Because I get it. and you probably get it, but they obviously don't. So, so that drives me round the bend hearing that all the time. Those seem to be the main arguments I hear from them. Although I don't consider them actual arguments at all. So yeah, comment down below. Tell me what you think. Maybe you're a Remainer and that is what you think. I don't know. Or maybe like me, you're a Leaver and you're sick to death of being told you didn't know what you were voting for, and it was some sort of I don't know, treated like some sort of brain dead pet dog by middle class people who want to remain. But anyway, yeah. So much for Super Saturday, and let's see what happens. And a bit more of the sun's coming up now, so I'm going to go off and get a nice cup of tea. And yeah, ciao for now. See you soon.